You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Okay, let's try to unpack this, because if you're in the world of product or technology right now, you're probably grappling with two major feelings.
Well, absolutely.
There's this incredible excitement about the whole AI revolution, right? But at the same time, there's just absolute whiplash from how fast everything is changing.
That is exactly the right way to frame it. I mean, what's fascinating is how quickly the rules of the game are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the technology itself, but, how we build our teams, who we hire, even how we calculate the value of what we're delivering. If you don't adjust your strategic lens, you'll be optimizing for a world that, well, that just doesn't exist anymore.
And when you're trying to filter through all that, it becomes pretty clear that success starts not with the tool, but with the people building it. So let's dive right into the psychology of product teams. Our analysis points to three really distinct mindsets shaping almost every conversation today. We've got the builders, the solvers, and the cynics.
And these archetypes are, I think, incredibly useful for understanding why there's so much friction in teams. The builders, they're your foundation. They're motivated by constraints.
Right.
You tell them you have a small budget, a tight deadline, and a really hard problem, and they thrive. They see limits as the raw material for creativity, not blockers.
I love that framing. And then you have the solvers, who are coming from the complete opposite philosophy.
Exactly.
Their whole focus is on trying to remove constraints. They think the only way to get to a better outcome is to just smash every obstacle out of the way.
And then, of course, you have the third group, the cynics. And they are maybe the most disruptive force in team dynamics right now.
How so?
They sort of equate this blunt, brutal honesty with authenticity. And in doing that, they glorify skepticism, which often makes them the loudest, most critical voices in the room.
But hang on a second. Don't you need a healthy dose of skepticism to build a good product? I mean, isn't a cynic just a disillusioned builder who knows where the traps are?
That's a really critical nuance. Healthy skepticism, testing assumptions, that's essential.
Okay.
But glorified cynicism is just a blocker. And what becomes really toxic is this alliance that often forms between the cynics and the solvers. The solver wants this perfect, constraint-free world, and the cynic gives them all the firepower to tear down any solution that has to live with constraints.
And that just grinds everything to a halt for the builders.
It creates this deeply frustrating environment for the people actually trying to ship value. The real progress, the tangible stuff, it's almost always driven by those who embrace uncertainty, the builders.
Which brings us right to this idea of personal alignment. Because if you're a builder and you're stuck in that solver-cynic culture, you are going to be miserable.
Absolutely miserable.
The insight here is so profound. If you find yourself just consistently hating your product job, you might just be playing the wrong game.
Yes. It's not the work you hate. It's the misalignment.
Yeah.
Your whole philosophy is clashing with the team around you every single day.
So the key is to find the right environment for your skills to actually shine.
It's the key to longevity.
Hmm.
And speaking of longevity, product management is a field that requires just immense stamina. This is where we get at the idea of the 9 lives of a product manager.
I love that concept. It just speaks to the brutal reality of the job.
It really does. It means surviving crises. Every single PM goes through these near-death experiences.
Like what?
A failed launch that teaches you a brutal lesson, a huge strategy shift that just erases 6 months of your work, losing a key exec, or just, personal burnout. Survival isn't about luck. It's adaptability, empathy, and this cycle of learning that turns all those setbacks into stronger leadership. You just have to be resilient enough to learn from failure, because the failures are definitely going to keep coming.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because all that resilience you need for internal chaos is now being compounded by this just revolutionary external chaos. Let's pivot straight to the AI revolution. I think we need to frame the current boom in the right way. It is today's App Store moment.
That analogy is perfect. It means it's currently overhyped, a little bloated with novelty products, and pretty poorly monetized for the most part. But it is rapidly becoming essential infrastructure. Just like back in 2008, the real lasting value isn't going to come from chasing buzz. It'll come from PMs who use these tools to solve very specific, very painful customer problems.
And the tech itself is evolving so quickly past those generic plug-and-play models. The future, from what we're seeing, really belongs to contextual AI.
Yes, contextual AI is the pivot point. We're moving beyond models that just give you, generalized creative output. Contextual AI is designed to understand specific user behavior, integrate deep into workflows, and work alongside people.
So less like a tool you prompt and more like a partner.
Exactly, like a silent, powerful partner, tuning all your proprietary data into precise insights and actions. For a lot of us, just figuring out what's foundational versus, what's ephemeral, that's a daily challenge.
It's constant.
It is.
Yeah.
It's why, for folks like us working on something like Vocal Technologist, we have to be so rigorous about filtering what really matters.
That clarity is absolutely essential, but there's a huge limitation here that leaders have to internalize, which is that AI cannot simulate real customer behavior.
Oh, this is a critical, critical distinction. And it's where I think a lot of early AI applications are just going to fail.
Why is that?
Well, while these large language models can convincingly mimic, say, a survey response or a customer service chat, they're completely unreliable for big strategic decisions. They just can't replicate the genuine, often irrational friction that drives how real people behave.
So you can't outsource empathy.
You can't. True product differentiation still comes from watching people, talking to them, and getting those messy, real insights, not from simulated intent. You just can't outsource that to an algorithm.
And as the tech matures, the whole economic model is changing too. We're moving pretty fast from the simple subscription model that, defined the last decade of SaaS.
Correct. We're seeing a big move toward results-based hybrid models, public companies, startups. They're all starting to treat pricing itself like a product.
Constantly iterating on it.
Constantly. They're optimizing it for a competitive edge. The market is basically demanding that the cost aligns directly with the value you get, not just access to the software. You pay for the outcome.
That idea of value alignment is a perfect bridge to sustain growth, which is so much more than just getting new users. It's about retention. And there's a really common and costly misconception here that retention in consumer products is all about clever marketing.
It's not. It is fundamentally about building habits.
Right.
Marketing gets a user in the door, but only habit keeps them there. Best apps find this really delicate balance between intrinsic motivation, the user wants to come back, and, thoughtful extrinsic levers like notifications or streaks that just nudge them.
If it's only the extrinsic part, you're just annoying people.
You're just annoying them into leaving, yeah.
So speaking of monetization challenges, let's talk about the pricing paradox we're seeing in the usage-based economy. Slack's model comes up as a perfect, if painful, example.
Slack really was a pioneer, but its model quickly exposed this deep customer resistance. The paradox is that people really resist paying for these tiny digital tasks, like one message or one API call.
Because they don't seem expensive on their own.
They don't. It's hard to justify a cost per message when the perceived cost to send it is, like, zero. This forces modern companies to either tie their prices to something that has a tangible external cost like cloud computing or actual shipping, or to monetize indirectly through partners. If the value feels weightless, the price will always feel arbitrary.
That makes perfect sense. So let's say a company gets past that. They've found product market fit, they've figured out habit building, their pricing is sustainable. What does long-term growth actually require? What happens after that initial spark?
That's where the organization has to catch up to the product. Sustained success really depends on three things that often get overlooked: codified culture, adaptable operating frameworks, and repeatable go-to-market systems.
You have to write the manual.
You have to translate the DNA of that early success into a manual. Clear values and disciplined execution are what turn that early chaotic momentum into a lasting institution.
And inside that structure, we have to think about who we're designing for. There's this really important difference between accessible design and inclusive design.
They get confused all the time. Accessible design is about making sure people can use the product. It's, technical compliance, screen readers, that kind of thing.
Got it.
Inclusive design, though, is about making sure people feel the product is for them. It addresses emotional and cultural barriers.
Yeah.
And a truly great product has to do both. The job isn't done just because the button works.
Okay, last point on this. As organizations grow, teams inevitably get overloaded with impossible demands. What's the right move when a product team is just drowning in scope?
The answer is actually pretty counterintuitive. It isn't to ask the team to work harder or longer hours.
Which is always the first instinct.
It's always the first instinct. The real action is to clarify trade-offs and to push back on that impossible scope with, surgical precision. When you're overloaded, discipline, clarity, and the courage to just say no are so much more valuable than pure effort.
Which brings us right back to the builders we started with.
Exactly. It all comes back to embracing constraints.
So what does this all really mean? We've covered the need for these adaptable mindsets, the shift to contextual, results-based tech, and the disciplined structure you need to turn that initial excitement into a real lasting enterprise.
And that leads to this final, really provocative thought about how organizations evolve. If you look at business history, great organizations evolve from daring pirates into disciplined navies.
Pirates into navies. I like that.
Yeah, the initial success is all about speed, breaking rules, individualism. But lasting, enduring success, that demands structure, doctrine, and collective power that can outlive any single founder's vision. Without that Navy-like structure, you just can't scale, and you can't survive.
That's an incredible metaphor for long-term strategy, especially right now in this chaotic landscape. And if we build on that, when life or product development feels kind of meaningless amidst all this change, there's a philosophical anchor. KMS invites us to confront the absurd. He argues that meaning isn't something you find out there in the chaos. It's something you create. You create it through responsibility, empathy, passionate living. So maybe the ultimate challenge for you is to embrace the absurdity of those 9 lives and still choose to create that value and that meaning for your users and for your team.
Spoken Tech, for your ears.